Star Trek has another Kirk team-up I'm excited for in Strange New Worlds Season 3. There's a team-up for Lieutenant James T. Kirk Paul Wesley I'm excited to see on Star Trek Strange New Worlds Season 3. Kirk has been a welcome recurring presence on the USS Enterprise, commanded by Captain Christopher Pike Anson Mount since he formally beamed aboard in Star Trek Strange New Worlds Season 2, Episode 6, Lost in Translation. Wesley played other alternate versions of Captain Kirk, but Lt. Kirk is the younger version of the future captain of the Enterprise played by William Shatner. In Star Trek Strange New Worlds time frame, circa 2259 to 2260, Lieutenant James T. Kirk is the newly promoted first officer of the USS Farragut. Kirk is on the fast track to Starship Command, and he occasionally visits the Starship Enterprise to learn from Captain Pike and Number 1 Rebecca Romijn. Kirk has already teamed up with Ensign Nyota Uhura Celia Rose Gooding, who introduced Jim to Lieutenant Spock Ethan Peck. But there's someone else on the Enterprise I can't wait for Kirk to join forces with. Kirk and Nurse Chapel already know each other, but you wouldn't think so on Star Trek Strange New Worlds. Star Trek Strange New Worlds hasn't made the connection explicit, but Lieutenant James T. Kirk and Nurse Christine Chapel Jess Bush must already know each other. Before Christine transferred to the Starship Enterprise, Chapel served aboard the USS Farragut with Kirk. This was confirmed in Star Trek Strange New Worlds Season 1, Episode 4, Memento Mori, when Chapel wore a Farragut pin during Starfleet Remembrance Day. Lieutenant Kirk joined the USS Farragut in 2255, so unless Jim somehow evaded visiting sickbay for years, he must have already met Nurse Christine Chapel. Kirk and Chapel haven't spoken to each other yet on Strange New Worlds, although they were both on the Enterprise bridge during the grand finale of Star Trek Strange New Worlds musical, Subspace Rhapsody. Kirk has interacted with several other Enterprise crew members, but not Chapel. Chapel's neurotic intelligence, as played by Jess Bush, would wonderfully complement Paul Wesley's cocky stride as Kirk. Hopefully, Star Trek Strange New Worlds Season 3 has a Lieutenant Kirk and Nurse Chapel team up, or at least scenes together, in the cards. Paul Wesley has exhibited dynamic romantic chemistry with Christina Chong's Lt. Layan Noonien Singh, and Kirk has lit up the screen with Celia Rose Gooding's Uhura Dan Ginat's Lt. Sam Kirk, and Rebecca Romijn's Number 1. Chapel's neurotic intelligence, as played by Jess Bush, would wonderfully complement Paul Wesley's cocky stride as Kirk. Kirk and Chapel have one other big Star Trek thing in common, along with their experiences aboard the USS Farragut, which can shed more light on what life is like on that little seen Starfleet vessel. Lieutenant Kirk and Nurse Chapel have someone else aboard the Starship Enterprise to commiserate over, Lt. Spock. Chapel has a rocky romance and unresolved feelings with the Vulcan science officer. Kirk barely knows Spock on Star Trek Strange New Worlds, but he's already fascinated by the Vulcan and enjoys pushing Spock's buttons. Nurse Chapel already loves Spock, and Kirk is well on his way to forging his eternal bromance with his favorite Vulcan. Star Trek Strange New Worlds also hasn't pulled the trigger on Kirk and Spock working together for the first time, and that's another team-up I'm dying to see. Maybe in Strange New Worlds Season 3, Spock, Kirk, and Chapel can be assigned together, with Jim caught between Spock and Christine's issues while Chapel witnesses the growing chemistry between Spock and Kirk. Nurse Chapel is part of Captain Kirk's Starship Enterprise. The Star Trek franchise has always thrived on dynamic duos, Kirk and Spock, Picard and Riker, Janeway and Chakotay. But Strange New Worlds, with its fresh yet nostalgic approach, has started cultivating a new team-up that's fast becoming one of the most exciting in modern Trek, the interplay between Captain Pike and the younger Lieutenant James T. Kirk. And with Strange New Worlds Season 3 on the horizon, that dynamic is poised to evolve into something truly compelling. When Strange New Worlds introduced Paul Wesley as a young Kirk, fans were understandably cautious. After all, William Shatner's portrayal is legendary, and Chris Pine's take in the Kelvin Timeline films brought a charming swagger that redefined the character for a new generation. But Wesley's Kirk is different. He's not the confident, experienced captain of the Enterprise yet, he's still becoming the man we know. And that makes his interactions with Pike Anson Mount all the more interesting. Pike and Kirk are two sides of Starfleet's ideal. Pike is thoughtful, moral, and diplomatic, embodying leadership through compassion and wisdom. Kirk, even in his formative years, is brash, intuitive, and ready to leap into danger to protect his crew. Seeing these two men work together, and sometimes butt heads, is like watching a relay baton being passed through time. One captain is preparing to exit the stage, while the other is beginning to rise. And unlike previous portrayals of this transitional phase in Star Trek canon, Strange New Worlds is giving us the rare chance to see it unfold slowly and meaningfully. Season 2 gave us a tantalizing taste of their chemistry. In the alternate timeline of Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow, we got a glimpse of Kirk as captain, working alongside Leia Noonien Singh in a version of the future where Pike had never commanded the Enterprise. That episode painted a different Kirk, one hardened by a more brutal timeline, yet still recognizable as the same fiercely intelligent strategist. It was a bold move to show us multiple Kirks across timelines, but it paid off, allowing us to explore what makes Kirk, well, Kirk. But what really sparked fan excitement was their real-time, present-day team-up in the Season 2 finale, Hegemony. With Pike leading the rescue mission and Kirk supporting him in the field, we saw a natural camaraderie developing between them. There was trust, even admiration, despite their differing approaches. Pike recognizes Kirk's potential. He doesn't see him as a threat or a rival, but as the future. And Kirk, in turn, respects Pike deeply, even if he occasionally chafes at the senior officer's more measured pace. Season 3, according to early hints from the cast and crew, will explore this relationship further. The Gorn threat remains unresolved, and Kirk's continued involvement with the Enterprise crew suggests he'll play a more prominent role going forward. That opens the door for more Pike-Kirk missions, more philosophical clashes, and hopefully, a deeper mentorship arc. Why does this team-up matter? Because it bridges two eras of Star Trek, the golden age of the original series and the reflective modernity of Strange New Worlds. It lets us examine legacy without being beholden to it. We know Kirk will eventually command the Enterprise, but watching him learn from Pike, navigate the moral complexities of early missions, and shape his command style through these experiences makes that eventual transition feel earned. It's also a powerful narrative opportunity. Pike, burdened with the knowledge of his fate, is a man trying to make every moment count. And what could be more meaningful than knowing that the ship, and the ideals it stands for, will be in good hands? By mentoring Kirk, Pike ensures that the spirit of exploration and responsibility he embodies doesn't end with him. There's also the potential for rich tension. These two aren't carbon copies of each other. Kirk's tendency to act on instinct might frustrate Pike's calculated reasoning. Likewise, Pike's restraint could seem like hesitation to the more hot-blooded Kirk. Watching them navigate those differences and grow because of them is fertile ground for the kind of character-driven storytelling Trek does best. And let's not forget the supporting characters. Seeing Spock caught between his two commanding officers, the logic-driven Vulcan trying to balance the styles of both his mentors, is a subtle nod to his future loyalty and development. La'an's continued connection to Kirk and Uhura's early interactions with him also add layers to